Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Yes, it is a very sensitive topic, the topic of socialism. I just wanted to, so that you get some perspective, I was born in the country that was once the richest country in Latin America. That in the 1950s, Venezuela was richer than the United Kingdom, than England today. Venezuela was a country full of immigrants. I come from a family where my 4 grandparents immigrated from Italy and Spain. They made their lives, they immigrated at age 19, at age 18, they cleaned houses, they cleaned cars in a parking lot. And from that level, working people, they ended up building themselves alive. They ended up buying a home, they ended up having children. The American dream in Venezuela, that's what we had in the 1950s through the 1970s, 80s. But our society started decomposing. Our society started getting addicted to being wealthy, I would say. Venezuela was really a rich country. And it was a rich country in part because we had a lot of natural resources. It is what people, economists and experts call the resource course. And it is a resource course that we should care about in America because America today is the richest country in the world. And there are people arguing in this country that because this is the richest country in the world, we have the right to run it down to the ground so that we can apply the policies that we want and spend the money of somebody else in the way that we want. Because this is what happened to Venezuela. In 1976, Venezuela nationalized the oil industry. That meant that the government took away oil businesses from international and American companies, Venezuelan companies, companies from everywhere. And this gave the government so much power that, in fact, even though they had so much more government revenue, they even spent more than what they had. There was no shortage of ways to spend the money. But poverty did not decrease in Venezuela, even though the government spent so much more money. Because as you all know already, when the government gives you something, that won't make you work. That will just make you work less. And that's exactly what happened there. So we made a mistake. The Venezuelan people made a mistake in 1998. And that was the final mistake that we could have made. Well, I wasn't even born then, but this is how bad it is. In 1998, Venezuela elected Hugo Chavez as president of the country. Hugo Chavez was this guy who, in 1992, he tried to kill the president, the democratically elected president, and make a coup. He went to jail. He was in jail for, treason. And because of political mistakes, he was released and pardoned by the following president because he wanted to be popular. And when he was pardoned, he ran for president and won. People voted for a murderer, a guy who went on TV, who murdered people on TV stations, who ran tanks through the capital city and tried to take our country. And he took it democratically in 1998. And after he did that, the first thing he did was change our constitution. Because the first thing authoritarians do is to try to destroy our values and our constitution, our rule of law. And that is why we see today in the United States that there are people who hate the Constitution of the United States. Because that's the best protection against socialism. That's the best protection against authoritarianism. So Hugo Chavez was in power. And he, nationalization of oil was just a baby in comparison to what he was going to do. He started nationalizing absolutely everything. Stores that my friends owned, like libraries in the street, the president would tear down the city. Imagine that, President Trump wouldn't do this, but any other president would come here and just go down the street and say, this is not yours anymore. It's now the government owned. Why? Because I like it. And because I like it, you shouldn't own it. This should be for the people. This fake concept that what the government owns is the people's is the worst notion that they have tried to put down in our children's and in our heads through tens and tens of years. And why has this been the case? Because this is the classic case in which they tell you that it's yours so that you become in favor of doing it. And that's why today we see in America people saying that, If we get free college, that's for the people. That's good because it's free for me. If we get free healthcare, this is great because it's going to be free for me. But somebody has to pay for these things. And in Venezuela, the people who paid was absolutely everyone. My parents owned a gas station that was later nationalized. We were making about $4,000 to $5,000 a month in 1999. That is a lot of money. Imagine in 1999, even in America, that would be, good upper middle class. By the time that we left, I left in 2016, and then they left in 2017, they were making $2 a day. $2 a day. We were just above the international extreme poverty line. If we had stayed, we would be in extreme poverty. There were weekly electricity shortages and water shortages. Why? Because the government nationalized electricity and water. There were food shortages. Why? Because the government nationalized supermarkets. They wanted to give free food to everybody. They wanted to give free electricity and free water to everybody. And when everybody wants to get something for free, just nobody gets it. And that is why currently there are weekly long blackouts in my country. There are weeks where I can't communicate with my friends and family because there is no way to reach them because there's also no internet connection. So this is a very serious thing. And you would say, why should Americans care? This is just an exaggeration. Democrats don't want to do this. Nobody wants to go down the path of Venezuela. They will tell you they don't want, of course. But when you ask some of the Democratic candidates for president, or when you ask some of the Congress members who are currently in office, such as Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and candidates such as Bernie Sanders, is Nicolas Maduro, the current dictator of Venezuela, is he a dictator? Well, I don't want to get into such complex issues of international affairs. Well, you're running for president, you should be able to get into those issues. They deny those people are dictators. And they deny those people are dictators because they know that the policies they want to apply in the United States are the same policies that destroy my country. And that is why I'm speaking up. I'm speaking up because I tell people, if I came to the United States, it's not for the United States to go the way that my country did. I want to tell you something that is funny and at the same time sad. We have a lot of this type of humor in Venezuela at these times. I had a Cuban professor in high school. He was my math professor. He was Cuban. It's not like he was, communist or anything. He actually escaped from Cuba in the 1970s. And he was a great math teacher. And, he escaped a communist country to get to another country that became communist later. And now he had to escape to Spain. And in Spain, there are political parties who are pushing things that are even more radical than what's happening here in the United States. They're actually directly funded by the Venezuelan government. So this is just to tell you that people always think that what happened in Venezuela, what happened in Cuba, what happened in all these countries will never happen to you. That is a lie. Ronald Reagan once said that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And it is completely true. And that is why there's something that you can do about it. This is a mom's conference, right? And the great thing about it is that societies are built upon the family. And all this happened because of one mistake in one election. We need to teach our children not to be envious. We need to teach our children not to be resentful. Because it is that resentment of somebody else's possessions. It is that resentment of somebody else's success that leads to the current situation in which there's a big chunk of the country that just wants to take away from the other part of the country for their own purposes. So what I challenge you today, I challenge you to talk to your children. I challenge you to talk to your family members. I challenge you to talk to your friends. You need to tell them that socialism doesn't work. And it doesn't work not because it is that the people who are in charge are bad, like many of the socialists here in the United States try to explain. No, it's because Maduro is bad, they're corrupt. It is because the system does not allow people, it's not human because it does not allow people to follow their self-interest and to get profit to actually make a living. In the United States, it's currently the richest country in the world, as I said before. And Venezuela was once the richest country in Latin America. But the reason that Venezuela stopped being the richest country in Latin America was not because we had massive corruption, was not even because we had a lower oil price like some of these leftists try to tell you. Venezuela is going through one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. It's the equivalent, some people say, of even a genocide. And it is not because of these external factors. It's not even because some people even try to blame President Trump for sanctioning the Venezuelan regime. And it's, in fact, if you were to ask Venezuelans, they would tell you, no, he should continue sanctioning them even more. So it's completely the opposite. In reality, what happened was that because they took away their profit incentive, there was no way where people could start their own businesses and create jobs. There was no way in which people could be entrepreneurial. Venezuela was an extremely entrepreneurial society. As I was telling you, it was a country of immigrants that came to be workers, then create their own businesses and become wealthy that way, just like America was, and it still is. So we need to keep America free. We need to keep America free from socialism. We need to keep America free from authoritarians. We need to keep America free from false promises. We need an educated citizenry, as our previous speaker was saying. If we don't have an educated citizenry about what's going on in these other countries, we're going to repeat the same terrible mistakes of the past. I was talking to some of my American friends that went to high school here, and they tell me that they're not taught about the genocides of socialist countries in their high schools. Some are not even taught about the Holocaust. How do we expect to learn from history if we don't teach history to our children? So Venezuela still has a chance to return to its freedom. Right now we're in a struggle after 20 years of this socialist dictatorship, 20 years of my whole life, because I never lived under a different government. My whole life was this dictatorship. Since I was little, we were talking about politics at home, how we could end this. There was one time when there was a coup and everyone was hopeful, and then, the dictator came back. And we really don't know how to do it without actual help from other countries, and that's why President Trump has stepped up, and that's why other countries in Latin America have stepped up, and we're very thankful for that. So I thank you for also supporting the cause of freedom for Venezuela. Finally, I just want to tell you that there is hope for Venezuela to return with the help of the world, but there is also hope for the United States to never go down that path. And it depends on you and every one of you. If we stand up and teach our children, if we teach people that what we need in this country is to continue, and yes, there are things that we can do to improve it, there are things the government can stop doing to actually improve the lives of people. If we are proactive in our solutions and not just to the defensive that socialism is bad, but we actually propose things on how to tackle the problems that many people on the left want to tackle, then we will be able to defeat them. Because I don't think that half of this country really wants what's going on in Venezuela. I think that people are being deceived by a small group of radicals within one political party that want to take over the rest of the party. I hope you fight for freedom. I hope you fight for free enterprise, that you fight for free markets, and that you fight to keep America free. Thank you.